I grew up in the 90s. If you're a millennial, then it's quite likely you remember the cartoon Hey Arnold from Nickelodeon. And if you're like me, then you remember mostly always having a good time, a chill time watching that show. And when you think about Nickelodeon cartoons that are just absolutely classics, which one day started getting very bad, the easiest and most obvious example is SpongeBob SquarePants. There are 1,000,001 videos on YouTube that already talk about SpongeBob's decline in quality, more or less from season 3 onward, even though at times it's gotten a little better, so SpongeBob's case is self-explanatory. It's an open and shut case. I'm here to talk about Hey Arnold and why I think seasons 4 and 5 of that cartoon just weren't overall as good as all of the seasons before it. And this includes the movie, which I'll talk about a little bit too. It's mostly the episodes themselves, which is going to be the bulk of what I talk about, but it's actually not just that. Even the look of the show, to me, was too different. Now, on the one hand, I know this isn't unique to Hey Arnold because the animation just went from the artist drawing all of the frames by hand to relying on the computer more to get the job done. And it's better and easier for the artists. I get that. And of course, it all still takes human effort. But I feel like for a cartoon like Hey Arnold, the transition wasn't as smooth as other cartoons. It's important to note that not all episodes of season 4 had digital ink. Cell shading was still evident in episodes like Phoebe Skips, Dinner for Four, Eugene's Birthday, and Stinky's Pumpkin. Once you get past those episodes in season 4 is when you can really notice the difference. And the animations just don't look as good as they did in the earlier seasons, unfortunately. While it's more convenient and looks cleaner, it loses the charm and fluidity that the cell shading style used to have. And Hey Arnold's art style just didn't fit the aesthetic for it, in my opinion. And speaking of Arnold's style, the next aspect that I feel was a downgrade before getting to the meat of the video are the two newest voice actors for Hey Arnold in seasons 4 and 5. Throughout his cartoon career, just as a TV show, Arnold Shortman has gone through 5 voice actors. J.D. Daniel voiced him in the pilot episode, which, if I'm interpreting this correctly, is the episode that later became the episode known as 24 Hours to Live.
There's something you should know, Harold. What? I'm crazy, and you should never hit a crazy person.
Lane Torren voiced him in season 1. He went on to voice Wolfgang in future seasons, and that's honestly how I remember him the most with lending his voice acting talent in the show. He just had the voice of a kid bullying other kids, especially after his voice changed. And he even voiced Arnold in season 1 when he low-key was a bully in the episode Mugged.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. You talking to me? You talking to me?
No, I didn't say anything.
When I asked my wife who she thought the best voice actor was, she said the voice actor from season 1. I suppose most fans, especially grown fans with senses of nostalgia, will also say Lane Torren as their favorite. But for me personally, the next voice actor for seasons 2 and 3 was the best. And that's Philip Van Dyke, who you may recognize from Halloween Town. I feel like Hey Arnold as a TV show also just had its best run during these seasons. So this might be why I think Philip was the best voice actor. His take just sounded the most essential to Arnold as a character, in my opinion.
Arnold, you seem a little cranky. Maybe you should take a nap.
Look, I only helped you because you said you were desperate. You said you wanted to change. I guess I was wrong. Mr. Kakashka, I'm sorry, but you are a huge loser.
And similarly to Lane Torren, he also went on to voice a new character, Ludwig, in season 5, a character similar to Wolfgang, which we will talk about later. Once season 4 began, Spencer Klein took over in the role, and when I was a kid, I didn't even know that they were changing voice actors. I just thought it was really strange why Arnold just sounded so different than he did before. This was also coupled with the digital animation that we discussed before. Now, I know that he was also a kid at the time just doing the job of voice acting, so no disrespect to him as a person, but his portrayal of Arnold just sounded too different, almost making it feel like it's not even the same Arnold anymore.
Stinky and Harold, the first thing you need to do is ask Eugene to forgive you. That is, if he can even hear you.
I'm okay.
Not only that, but he just lacked the same emotion and personality that was established with the character in previous seasons. Obviously, with recasts, even if it's just a voice recast, the personality of the character will change a little bit. But from season 4 onward, it seemed like Arnold as a character, his personality, his voice, and the show itself just changed for the worse. The downgrade continued for the last 2 episodes of the show, where Alex D. Linz took over, who you may recognize from Home Alone 3. Again, no disrespect to the guy who was a kid at the time just doing his job. He sounded pretty close to Spencer Klein's take on the role, so this was just an extension of the complaints I already had with Spencer in the role too.
It isn't a gag. It's a belated birthday present.
Yeah, right.
I'm serious, Helga. I mean, your birthday was last week, right?
This just wasn't the same Arnold anymore. But anyway, enough about the visuals, enough about the voicing. Let's get into the show itself. And I'm not saying that the whole entire show became trash after season 3, because some of the episodes were still pretty great. I'm just going to go over some examples of episodes that I thought were way below the bar that were set with the reputation of the show. I have to make a disclaimer because I'm going by Wikipedia's list for this video, and it seems like a lot of the episodes are out of order. Like for instance, Parents' Day is listed as a season 5 episode when I'm pretty sure it was the final episode of season 3 with Philip's last time voicing Arnold. And the episodes before the change in animation are listed somewhere in the middle of season 4, but you'd think they'd be in the beginning since it's after episodes like this that the original aesthetic is gone. Anyway, Full Moon was the first episode I remember as a kid watching the show with the new look. And right off the bat, I thought that whatever humor they were going for turned crude and abrasive. Why the hell are they showing kids showing their bare asses in a cartoon for kids? I don't care if that shit was supposed to be a typical prank, because in my eyes, that's not a typical prank, whether it's in a freaking kids show or in real life. Then there are episodes which just start to contradict events from previous seasons. Oscar Can't Read is an example of this. The whole episode is about how Oscar is illiterate. Now how can he be delivering newspapers, as we saw in season 3, if he can't read? In fact, Arnold straight up brings that up in the episode.
I didn't need to read to become the successful man I am today.
But you're a paper boy.
And on top of that, in season 3, when Hillwood was suffering a flood, how was he able to write out a sign to scam people into getting rescued?
Professional rescue, no waiting. I love this country.
So yeah, this season 4 episode about Oscar doesn't make any sense, and it kinda sucked. And then there's the episode of Grandpa Phil going back to school. I'm not even gonna get into how it doesn't make sense for Grandpa to have not finished school past the 4th grade and still go on to becoming a functioning and responsible adult. But one particular thing I'm gonna hone in on is this scene here, where he takes Connie and Maria, 2 6th graders, to the movies.
Hey, Connie, Maria. What's shaking, ladies?
Grandpa, where are you going?
We're gonna sneak into a PG-13 movie.
But you're 81. You can get into a PG-13 movie anytime.
This is a freaking kids show, and I don't care if that's literally all they were doing, 2 12-year-olds and an 81-year-old going to the movies, because it's still creepy as hell that Grandpa Phil would go out with them like that. And that's all I'm gonna say about the matter. There's unfortunately more character assassination of Grandpa Phil in my eyes, and that's the episode dedicated to veterans. I feel like seasons 4 and 5 were also just weirdly getting kinda sexually suggestive, both with its dialogue and its imagery, which the show never really was at all before. This episode implies how Grandpa Phil had a one-night stand while he was away from home in World War II. This is a kids show, but the other implication here is that this would also basically mean that during the 40s, he cheated on Grandma Pookie. I didn't think about these sorts of implications as a kid because the whole concept of a show being good or bad wasn't something that registered in my head back then, but I'll get into that later. Something else that the show started doing was introducing new characters, and whenever a show starts to do that, towards the end of it is always a sign that the writers started running out of ideas. The most infamous of new characters has to be Arnold's cousin Ernie. The whole inception of this character is obviously just to be an anti-Arnold, But him showing up out of nowhere was just an aberration in and of itself, to say the least. If Arnold has a football-headed cousin, then that means he's got more family than just his grandma and grandpa. He has to have an aunt or an uncle on his mom's side living wherever it is that Ernie is from. But they never give him a backstory. Now granted, Ernie did show up one more time, and that was the episode where the show was kind of a parody of its own self, and Arnold visits Ernie to see that there's an anti-version of literally everyone he knows. There's also Grandpa's twin sister Mitzi, who somehow also never gets brought up at all before her episode, despite the episode itself establishing that she's been living in Hillwood for all her life. Monkey Man was an established background character since literally Season 1, Episode 1, but Season 4 was when they decided to give him his own episode where he basically goes from being your friendly neighborhood vigilante to living the life of a celebrity. And after he fails to save Sid from getting jumped and then gets called out by him for it directly in public, the episode concludes with him just writing a note to Arnold and going right back to how he was in the beginning. I don't know, an episode like this just doesn't have a punchline or a conflict to overcome like most other episodes do. And then there's the episode about the new bully on the block, where the character Ludwig is at first an enemy to Wolfgang, but by the end of it seems like they're becoming friends. There is a certain irony to how they're both voiced by former actors who used to be Arnold and aged out of the role, but that irony does not even come close to saving the episode from being bad. The two of them have the nerve to punch Helga in the face, and that's how the episode ends. Also talking about running out of ideas, the episode Love and Cheese is pretty much almost exactly the same as the Season 1 episode about the annual cheese fair, except this time it's about Helga pretty much trying to sabotage Arnold trying to get with Ruth, with Arnold trying to get with Lila. The movie flopped in more ways than one, and I actually never even watched it as a kid. I watched it for the first time when I was rewatching the whole show and getting my wife to experience it. And we both agreed that the movie was pretty bad. Like, not even the extra budget for the animation was an upgrade for the movie. There's not much to say about it other than how bad it was, and this video is mainly about the TV show anyway, so it's not even worth talking about the movie that much. But I also want to talk a little bit about the Jungle movie, first to say that it was a huge step up, definitely from a visual standpoint, since that's the first complaint I had about the first movie. Of course, it came out way later, so the technology for animation had increased like tenfold by 2017. I also think the person they cast as Arnold was a good choice, Mason Vale Cotton, compared to how he sounded toward the end of the show, plus the first movie. And it's quite remarkable how they got some of the OGs back too.
Arnold!
Whatever you say, Helga.
Ooh, good comeback, Arnoldo. Doy, come on, Phoebes. Falling!
Again, this video isn't meant to be about the movies. Let me know in the comment section if you'd like to see a separate video about the Jungle movie, but the only complaint I'll have here is that I think what they should have done is made all of the characters a little older. Since the main target audience was obviously the millennial demographic who grew up watching the original show, what they could have done to make the Jungle movie feel even more relatable was to age all the characters up to maybe being either freshmen in college or even high school seniors, just to reflect upon how much time has passed since both we, the audience, got older and so did Arnold and the gang, you know? Anyway, as I said from the beginning, I'm trying to be concise with my complaints here, so I'm not even going to get into how Arnold as a character also kind of changed in some ways for the worse in seasons 4 and 5 of the cartoon. And you might also be thinking that, yes, this is a cartoon, and maybe I'm just overthinking it. Well, here's the thing with that. I promise you, when I was a kid, and I was a little bit older watching seasons 4 and 5 than I was when I watched the first 3 seasons, I was already getting the feeling like those episodes of the show just didn't have the same feel-good vibes that I was used to, that I knew about the show prior to that. In other words, as a kid, I also started to feel like the show started going downhill once we got to season 4. It's just that back then, I was just a kid, and back then, there was no YouTube to get my thoughts across. And I just want to reiterate that I'm not saying that all of the last 2 seasons were bad. There were some pretty great episodes there still. Helga on the Couch is probably a fan favorite. I've just been getting older, and it's been so many years, and now we have YouTube, and I'm simply using it as a platform for my thoughts. And you got some thoughts from Osheem. If you stuck around all the way to the end, thank you so much. Did you grow up watching Hey Arnold? What are your thoughts about the show? Let me know if you want to see a separate video about the Jungle movie specifically, and until next time, holla at your boy.